Hi, I'm Wayne the Boat Guy, and in this video I'm going to quickly talk about why it's important to tie our boats up correctly. It's a little more to it than I thought. There are a lot of technical terms and proper term usage for a lot of the ropes that you tie off your boat with. You know, these are your bow lines, and as you see, my boat has these nice little metal sleeves that they run through out here, and I guess that's helped to line them up correctly. And there's terms like bow line, spring line, stern lines. I don't know all the terms yet. I'm learning as I go. The Chapman book is a good resource for those kinds of things. In the Chapman piloting book, there is a section about tying off your boat and all the various ways that you can tie off your boat to make sure that it's secure. And what's important is to, when you tie off your boat, is to be able to compensate for tidal changes, current changes, and also wind situations. If you've never invested in it, the Chapman piloting book is a really useful resource. So on my boat, I keep a lot of rope handy. I don't have any storage lockers on my boat because it's a small old boat. And so I just have where some of my rod holders are mounted, I have some rope draped over there that we can quickly and easily use whenever we need to pull up anywhere to tie off. In my slip, all my ropes are permanently attached, so they are here whenever I pull back into my slip. These ropes are purely for any time that we are out and we need to be able to pull up somewhere else. We took our boat over to a restaurant last week, and when somebody came out to help tie us off, one of the things they did is they took my 20-foot rope and they attached it to my bow cleat and ran it around the piling one time and then attached it to my stern cleat, making a nice spring line, but also being able to utilize one rope to tie off the whole boat there. And that really worked very nicely. And then we put another rope on the other bow cleat, tying it to another piling, so that kept my boat from moving around a whole lot. I won't get into all the nuances of how you're supposed to tie off, and I'm sure people will look at how I've tied off and definitely have something to say about it. But the important thing is that you work in the figure 8 pattern, tying off to your cleat, and that your cleats are in good shape. So with my boat, I just kind of pull it up to it a little bit and do that. And then I think there's a trick where people do this kind of thing like that. I usually then wrap around one more time. And then I've always heard that it's good seamanship to keep your ropes tidy. So I usually try to put the end of it in a nice little coil right here, but that's just me. That has a nice tight attachment. So one of the important things I believe is that you're supposed to come in from the back side of the cleat, so that way you're utilizing the cleat the best. Another important thing to have on your boat are fenders. I'm not going to talk much about fenders at this point in time, but whenever you're pulled up alongside of any other object, if there's going to be any wind or anything pushing you back and forth on there, it's a good idea to have a fender to hang over the side of your boat to protect your boat from either the bulkhead, the pier, or the boat next to you. I don't have a whole lot of cleats on my boat, so one of the things that I do is my fenders are tied off to rod holders, so that way I can quickly just pull a fender out and hang it over the side of my boat. I can do adjustments afterwards, but at the very least, I've now got a fender out there if I need to, if I'm pulled up next to another boat. Obviously, if you have a much nicer boat, this method might not work for you. But my little old boat, it works pretty good. And then I also keep my rope just hanging right there over the rod holder, so that way my ropes are always ready. When I'm taking my family along, because they don't know much about boating, they can easily quickly grab me a rope, and I can also just tell them to throw the fender over the side, and I don't have to worry about losing a fender or whether or not it's been tied off correctly. I want to talk to you real quickly about subscribing. I love making these videos, and by subscribing, Your support lets me know that you want to see the content that I'm making. And I also want to be able to find out what content you're looking for so that I can make content specially catered to you. When I first got my boat, I actually thought that all you had to do was just sort of tie it off to keep it from floating away. I didn't realize all the nuances of tying up a boat correctly. I would bring it here into the marina and I would tie off. I was just tying off to 4 corners. And I was doing the crossing of the ropes across the front like I saw other people were doing. And what I found was that as the tides came up and down, my boat would either be really slack or it would be really, really tight. If you tie off at the wrong time, at the wrong tide level, your boat could actually be hanging from those 4 ropes if the tide goes way down. Conversely, what can happen is it can become so slack that your boat ends up banging into the pier whenever the tide shifts. And that was another one of the problems I encountered. When the tide came up really high, my boat ended up sliding up onto the pier and banging the pier. If it's a windy day, you can actually really damage your boat like that. My short-term fix last year was I actually took a fender and attached it to the front of the pier so that my boat would hit against that. But it was a real challenge. This year, the slip that they put me in had this really cool pulley and weight system on it. And I had never seen anything like that before. Essentially, the way it works is the back pilings have I'm sure there's a technical name for them, probably a block and tackle or something like that, but have some pulleys with roller wheels on there, and you attach your rope to the back of the boat, and it goes up through that and down to a weight that's down in the water. And then what you do is you tie off your back, and then you tie off your front. And what happens is as the tide goes up and down, those weights keep your boat centered in your slip. So my boat never moves too far back in the slip to bang against the back pilings, and it never moves so far forward that it bangs against the pier. However, there's a challenge to that, because what happens is that because my boat is centered in the slip, it's very hard for people to get on and off my boat. So this year, whenever I'd go out, my family was a little bit apprehensive a lot of times to step on the boat. Sometimes the height of the boat was way above the pier and far out, or way below the pier and far out. So then somebody showed me this other cool trick. What he showed me is he said, if you have a rope tied off on the front of your boat and you have a cleat there, keep that rope slack, but attached. And then whenever you want to get on and off your boat, you just, from the pier, just pull your boat towards you, tie it off to that cleat. Now your boat is real close to the pier. So even if it is above or below the pier level, it's nice and close now. Much easier for stepping on and off the boat than it would be if it was centered in the slip. So when I've been out boating for the day and I go to come back, once I've tied off the boat, I just take my loose line that's on the front of my boat and I just run it around that cleat. There we go. Once I run it around that cleat, I can pull the boat in real tight. Temporarily tie it off to make it easy for people to get on and off the boat. Once everybody steps off the boat, I just loosen it up, but leave it attached, so that makes it easier for later on when we go back out. So that way there's plenty of slack in this line. This is just sitting on top. And then the boat is held with these 2 lines right here, and the lines in the back of the boat. At our marina, we are allowed to put extra cleats on. If you're not allowed to do that at your marina, maybe there's some other point that you could attach to. Maybe there's a loop underneath of the bulkhead or something like that. Of course, when you go to launch your boat, you have to remember to untie that cleat as well. So you now have an extra rope to undo before you pull out. The rear ropes on my boat, if you see, I have them actually attached with quick release clips. And what's nice is that way I can have somebody else release those for me when I'm launching my boat, and I don't have to worry about untying anything, and I don't have to worry about anything falling off. Another challenge when you don't have the pulley system with the weights is that when your boat is tied off, if there is going to be an extremely high or low tide, you have to go back and check on your boat to make sure that it is still okay in its slip. And since I've been able to use the weight and pulley system, I have not had any of those kinds of issues at all, regardless of the tide. Well, I hope this video was informative and educational. If so, please be sure to like and comment below. I really appreciate the feedback, and I also try to respond to all the comments that people make with my videos. And I hope you have a great day out in the water.